YouTube? Danny Staten here on the Daily Dan blog, and today I got a treat for you guys. That's right. Today I'm checking out Highlander #1 from Dynamite Comics that come out in 1993, and judging from this cover, if the inside is anything as good as the outside, we're gonna get a rare treat, an actual good comic book. I loved the movie Highlander, even though I thought it was unfortunate that the tagline from this movie was, "There can be only one," and then they come out with 25 sequels and a comic book line and a TV series, and there was a whole lot more than one. So does anybody remember the really cool movie Highlander?
Time comes a man of great power. Talk funny, Nash. Where you from? Lots of different places. A warrior of incredible strength. You've the devil in you. We've been kinsmen 20 years. Connor McLeod was my kinsman. I don't know who you are. Because you were born different, men will fear you. Try to drive you away.
I have the power.
Certain of his future. You gotta get rid of him, because a guy has been creeping around since at least 1700. I feel the head of all the right past.
Oh, you go, wrestling boy.
I have some answers.
You cannot die, McLeod. I'm Connor McLeod of the Clan McLeod. I was born in 1518 in the village of Glenfinnan on the shores of Loch Shiel. I am immortal. A hero who is about to face his greatest challenge. You will always be weaker than I.
Why didn't you tell me about a 7-foot lunatic hiding away with a broadsword at 1 o'clock in the morning in New York City, 1985?
Not much, for he is not alone. At the end, what could be only one? Highlander, there can be only one. Here we are!
So now you remember the Highlander, boy. Hey, this comic book takes place shortly after the events of the movie, when they didn't think they were going to make a sequel. This was supposed to be it. So let's see what happens with Highlander shortly after the events of the movie, with complete historical flashbacks, just like in the movie. You know, I really love that movie. It had Sean Connery in it. It was awesome. And you have to like a movie that has some wrestling clips in it, right? Wow. So in this little first edition of Highlander, The Next Generation, you get the story about the dawn of time, the Highlanders' rise, and now back in World War II, the Kurgan himself was making super soldiers for the Nazis, using his Highlander DNA. This is going to be exciting. And here's the alternative glary-ass covers brought to you by the Daily Dan blog. Yeah, our comic book starts off with Highlander and Professor Von Helsing on a helicopter as Connie McLeod tells the pilot where to fly. Highlander and Professor Von Helsing are talking over that's right, Professor Evil, his experiments during World War II, where he was helping the Nazis create super soldiers using the blood of the Kurgan. So in full shiny-ass glossy panels brought to you by the Daily Dan blog, this comic book does not look like one of the old comic books that I love to review, with the pages looking like they come from 1969. No, this is one of these shiny, new, glossy, sticky pages that don't really impress me here on the Daily Dan blog. Connie isn't impressed neither, as the Professor Von Helsing fills in the Highlander in shiny-ass panels. Look, it's his daughter Whoa, back in the day, she grew old and passed away. Good, good gravy. As the professor rescued her, hiding from the Nazis just like Anne Frank's back in the days of the Holocaust. Van Helsing was somewhat of a hero, I guess. Oh, great Scots. And after the war, the little girl grew up, turned into Marilyn Monroe looking chick, and hung out with the Highlander for another 20 years, and they hooked up and they got married, and they had a little Connie McLeod, and oh, I just threw up in my mouth. And somewhere in Russia, all of a suddenly, Russia, in Moscow, after the war, where the secret of the super soldiers has been captured, a ninja steals the experiment book and the whatever the blue hell tinamite is. And then we get a commercial. That's right, a commercial for the return of the Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger was back in 1993 with all new adventures in Dynamite Comics. God, I want one of them. But there's a few things I probably would like to have better. Like this Red Sonja comic book. I've got quite a few Red Sonja and Vampirella comic books. You should check out the reviews for them if they hadn't been taken down on the Daily Damn blog. So to carry on the story, somewhere back in 1982 in Russia, our ninja friend, I guess that's Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. Hey, he was in my last comic book review that nobody watched. G.I. Joe, a real American hero. Anyway, it looks like Snake Eyes has showed up to steal some Russian secrets. You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with any comic book that features a ninja decapitating a Russian soldier. Decapitation! Oh, I love that bit. Anyway, the Russians go down to Snake Eyes. He retrieves the information and brings it back to, oh my God, it's the Kurgan. He brings it back to the Kurgan, who of course has a World War II flashback in this comic book. Kurgan flashes back to when Dr. Van Helsing was a young man, and using the Kurgan's DNA stuff to try to make Russia a super soldier. You know, for dun 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 dun. Turn down that wall, guy. And it's so sad I had to Google the name Gorbachev. I call him Gorbachev. I guess old Gorbachev would do. Anyway, Van Helsing is not happy working for the Kurgan as they go through page after page of how he hates working for the Kurgan. As he reveals the story and tells Highlander on the helicopter headed to who the hell knows where. This comic book is kind of confusing. It's more confusing than the movie, flashing back through all these different time zones. Hey, Full Panels brought to you by the Daily Damn blog. As we go back once again in a flashback to the afterlife. It's what went on after the war. Because we really care about his home life, about his pregnant wife, and about the Kurgan lurking in the background. And the helicopters, and we go right back to the helicopter. Jeez, and the helicopter being bounced around as Connie McLeod tells her dad, hey, we got turbulence ahead. She didn't see this coming as Cobra Commander and Snake Eyes are going to shoot a missile with the Kurgan at the helicopter. And good God, jeez, boom, the helicopter took a direct hit and is going to crash to the ground. You know, I wish the art inside the book was as good as the art on the cover. Of course, you'd think all these guys was immortal as the helicopter went down and crashed and nobody got a scratch on them and walked away looking like they was ready for battle. Then we get a commercial for Battlestar Galactica. Wow, from Dynamite. Battlestar Galactica from Dynamite. Coming soon to the Daily Dan blog. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I think I just came. Jeez, Darkman versus the Army of Darkness, the comic book that I will be searching for in the bargain bins for the future. Oh my God, I've got to have this. This could be the greatest thing I've seen in a long time. And on that note, I guess it's time for a couple of shout-outs. Let me give a quick shout-out to Dave Sunstorm and his incredible brother, Steven Sunstorm. You know, the Good Stuff Brothers here on YouTube. Let me give a special shout-out to Thrash Pondo Pines, who you will be seeing with me, premiering on the Daily Dan blog September 6th. And on his channel, Thrash Pondo Pines, you will see Thrash and Dan Save the World, Season 2, Episode 1. Coming the 6th of September, when we take on books that made horrible movies. With our girl Sarah, my flock is everywhere, and probably the unapologetic Geeky McGill, you know, the guy who wrote that really cool book. Come down, visit it with me in person, and where's it at? Yes, that's right. He signed it. That's right. I've got an autographed copy of Paradox. And I would have an autographed copy of his new book if you knew Amazon didn't suck so much, it wasn't so slow. Jeez, God. And a shout out to Pat McCormack at the Golden Ranger TV and my main Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. You can see Bigfoot, Michigan Rob on YouTube weekdays at 2 p.m.? Check out Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, as well as my girl, Brain Bender's Banner, Chrissy. Be sure to check out Brain Bender's Banner Saturday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, where you'll see Natty Dan as part of the incredible panel of cool people over there. And we can only hope that this cool scene right here comes out to be the thumbnail, as I do all the other cool shout-outs for Big Guys 45's BK on the air. Oh, have I mentioned my flock is everywhere, Sarah, the best producer on YouTube? She produces all my stuff. The Nostalgic Pot Blast Chance, Tony of the Dead, Moggs the Mowgli on Monster UFO Man re-uploaded Blue Line Bigfoot, Caucasian Sasquatch, Gypsy Road, the Hair Metal Revolution guy. Be sure to check that out. He's got some new stuff coming out on Gypsy Road Mysteries. Long Island Bigfoot, L.I.B. My friend Kyle, the C-A-L-D-Y. Shin Godzilla, 1987. Iron Dogger, Tracy Rothmeyer's Retro Nerd Girl, and the Life and Sad Endings channel. And if I've left you off, let me know in the comments below. And if I've removed you from the list, beep you. Matter of fact, if I removed you from the list, you're lucky you didn't make the comic book. You know, if you're a Skank Arkansas witch or a bald-headed Vegas magician, you should worry. Well, I guess the helicopter was in search of the Kurgan because the Kurgan done shot them down. They crash landing who the hell knows where. And now, face to face with the Kurgan, the battle begins. So in full panels, brought to you by the Daily Dan blog, I present to you the epic comic book battle, Kurgan versus Highlander, in the future. And whatever year that this takes place, 1983. And they go one on one with the great one. He kind of looks like The Rock, don't he? In these shiny, glossy panels, brought to you by the Daily Dan blog, with the second-rate art that is making me sick, and I do not like the glossy panels, as Connie McLeod joins the battle because, you know, I wonder if she's a Highlander too, because she's got Highlander blood in her. Anyway, the battle's going on and on and on. Kurgan shouts an obscenity and says that we have ruined our place, me and my mutant G.I. Joe army. We call ourselves Cobra. Now, I keep thinking about that G.I. Joe comic book last week. You should really check that review out, because it's a much better comic book than this piece of crap I'm looking at here today. As Kurgan wards off Highlander and says, we'll be back. Wrong movie again, you'll be back. He runs and meets his mutant Kurganites made from his genetic material, and they ride off. They ride off as Highlander reviews the fact that the professor might have got the anal probe, judging from the way this looks. The professor's down. And the other professor's like, whoa, in the memory. And, good God, this is confusing. So, right here in the foreground, the professor goes down. He's a goner, boy. He got the anal probe. And somewhere in the spirit world, Connor McLeod says, your work here's done by go on to the next incarnation. And this is the most confusing comic book that ever existed. As Connor tells Connie that the professor grandpa has bought the farm. It's at that point that the Russian soldiers show up. Oh my God. They're surrounded by the Russians, and we'll have to see what happens next in part 2. Oh, stuff. And then we get some glossy dynamite dispatches all about the upcoming shit. Okay, we're going to take a look at Highlander number 2, The Adventures of Connie McCloud. And we get some reading about all this. We get Highlander 0. That's probably the 0 piece of crap we're looking at now. I wish it was easier to read for you, Marone. Hey, Michael Marone actually wrote in, geez, Michael, you had something to do with this comic book too? While the art in this comic book was second rate, I did see a couple of things in here I really liked, like Red Sonja. And you could have ordered this really cool Red Sonja statue back in 1983. And of course, they were doing the Army of Darkness comic books. You can't go wrong with the Army of Darkness comic books. Any Army of Darkness comic books were probably great. Speaking of great, Xena is a Xena, warrior princess. You know, that was on TV when this comic book came out. And then you get a commercial for my favorite run of Battlestar Galactica comic books, the one featuring the art from the original series. I love this set of Battlestar Galactica comic books. Well, that's right, I'm a big Battlestar Galactica fan. That's the number one from the original Marvel, but when it comes to Dynamite Galactica, these are some of the best Dynamite covers for Battlestar Galactica that ever existed. I got the first 4 in a week. I found them. I love these comic books. I recommend you check out my reviews for Battlestar Galactica, the original looking series comic books. Oh my God, it's Sin City. Look at that face. Sin City must be filmed in Arkansas because that face looks familiar. That's an Arkansas face, if ever I saw one. Got you. And the new releases are out. Red Sonja, Army of Darkness, Battlestar Galactica, Highlander, you just saw this, and Xena and the new Lone Ranger. Wow, and they had giveaways too. They probably should have gave this crap we just looked at away, right? Anyway, there's a commercial for Highlander Part 2. Yep, Serpentor Kurgan versus Highlander some more in Part 2. And that's my look at Highlander. Highlander the comic book. Dynamite number 1, 1993. The events right after the events of the movie. What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for this piece of crap. And I'll be back with another great comic book review or bash next week. Blog over, dudes.